Anthropic just released a masterclass on Claude Code, so I spent 7 hours going through the entire course and compiled everything into this one video. I also included lessons I learned from spending well over 500 hours inside of Claude Code. So if you really watch this video until the end, you will be ahead of 99% of people. Now, everything we're going to cover in this video is from the official Anthropic course. So this isn't some random vibe coder from Twitter. This is the advice from the experts who actually created Claude Code. So here's a quick introduction to the entire course. It's organized into 4 sections. First off, what is a coding assistant? Then why Claude Code? Then how to work with Claude Code as your partner, and then how to get the most out of Claude Code. And each section builds on top of the last. So if you really watch until the end, you'll have a better understanding of Claude Code than 99% of developers. First, let's clarify what is a coding assistant. Now, yes, obviously it's a tool that writes code, but Anthropic goes a lot deeper here. They explain the actual behind the scenes of how a coding assistant works. And you can see that on the top right. The coding assistant includes a language model, which has access to a set of tools, and the language model then has these 3 steps. First, it needs to gather context. Second, it needs to formulate a plan, and third, it needs to take an action, and then repeat these until the task is done. Now, if you look at steps 1 and 3, gather context and take an action, these cannot be done just by the language model reasoning or thinking. The coding agent needs to interact with the outside world, also known as the environment, with what we call tools. So to gather context, maybe it uses a read file tool to read some files. To take an action, maybe it uses edit file tools to edit the code of the files. But either way, it cannot do this just by thinking, just by answering. No, it needs relevant, useful tools to execute these actions. This means that to have a strong coding assistant, you need both a powerful LLM, a strong AI model, and also lots of powerful tools that the AI model can use. And here are just some of the tools that Claude Code has. You can see that agent can launch a sub-agent to handle a task. Bash, run a shell command, edit the file, and so on and so forth. It has lots of built-in tools, which is what makes Claude Code very, very powerful. And here are a few examples to show you just how powerful Claude Code really is. First, we have this optimization task that Claude Code was tasked to do with the following prompt. Run benchmarks for the chalk library. For any result that looks slow, find the root cause and fix it. Keep in mind that this is a super popular library with nearly 400 million weekly downloads. So you would think that this is already very optimized, but Claude Code actually managed to find serious improvements. For one specific use case, it even managed to find a 3.9x improvement in speed in a library that literally tens of millions of applications use. The second example is a data analysis task. In this situation, Claude Code was given a bunch of data structured like this, CSV file, and this is a user streaming platform, so maybe something like Netflix, and the task was do an analysis on the data in the streaming CSV file. And even more, it was tasked to do this inside of a Jupyter notebook to produce results like this. So it didn't just give you answer like, here is how many users there is, here is the typical avatar. No, it created visual graphs, charts, and different data analysis to spot where there is a churn and what the data actually looks like. The third example of just how powerful Claude Code is this UI styling task. So here is what the original prompt was. Improve the design of this app, focus on the chat interface and the header. And then it was given this Playwright MCP server. So if you're not sure with Playwright, it's an end-to-end testing framework developed by Microsoft, and it was given an MCP tool that allows Claude to control the browser, take screenshots and do different actions like a front-end developer could. And so Claude Code managed to run in one side and open the localhost, so it opened the website on the other side, and actually, thanks to the Playwright MCP, see what it's like and improve the UI just like a human developer would, making sure that each change it made, it tested it, took a screenshot again, and made sure that it actually looks good. Not just the code is correct, but that the design feels good. Oh yeah, and not to mention, you can also use Claude Code in your CI/CD pipeline to automatically review every single pull request on GitHub. So yeah, Claude Code is very, very powerful, and learning how to use it can be one of the best investments for your software career. Alright, so let me show you how to actually set up Claude Code. First, type in Claude Code into Google, click on the official link from Anthropic, claude.com, and then we need to copy this curl command. So copy that, boom, type in terminal, open any terminal in your computer, paste it in and hit enter. This will install the latest version of Claude Code on your machine. And there we go, Claude Code successfully installed, version 2.1.12, but if you're watching this later, you might have even newer version. So now, to launch it, all you have to do is type in Claude into any terminal on your computer, and this launches Claude Code. First, it asks you if I want to trust this folder, so I do yes, and just like that, it's open, and this is Claude Code. We can literally start using it just like this. So you don't need anything else. You don't need an IDE, you don't need any fancy UI. You can just use it in a terminal, and the user interface is very, very friendly. Guys, you can type in plain English. You don't need to be a developer. You don't need to be a DevOps expert. You can type in plain English and use Claude Code. This is why it's the most popular coding tool in the world right now. Now, usually it's a good idea to run Claude Code in a specific folder. So I'm going to cd into the folder of Vectel by startup /go/startup. Boom, there we go. And And if I do ls, you can see that this is correct file. I have a backend, frontend, a bunch of other stuff, so I'm in the right folder. And now I can type in Claude, and this is smart because now I'm not afraid of Claude messing stuff up in other directories on my machine. Instead, everything only happens inside of this directory right here. So I would highly recommend you create a specific folder for Claude Code and run it in that folder. Now, the next thing that Anthropic teaches us in this course is the Claude Code setup. So after you install Claude Code, the very first thing you want to do in any project is run the /init command, and especially if it's an existing code base. This will have Claude analyze your entire code base and create a claude.md file, which will act as the system prompt for your Claude Code. And it includes a summary of your architecture, key files, conventions, and anything else that is relevant to Claude Code performing well. Now, the best part about claude.md is that it's included in every request. So you don't have to copy paste it or anything like that. Claude Code will always know what project it's working with. So let me show you. I'm going to switch back to the terminal and I'm going to do /init. This is a pre-built command that will initialize the new claude.md file. So let's hit enter. And now Claude Code will begin analyzing my entire code base and see what's happening. See what's inside, what type of files we have, what the structure is, what the tech stack is, what features this app has, and it will put everything relevant into a single concise Markdown file. And as you can see, Claude Code is using lots of different tools. Like, wow, in the first 10 seconds, it's like 15, 20 different tools. Very impressive. And it does this to get the necessary context to actually create a useful claude.md file. And again, this is running just in my terminal. You don't need to install Cursor, VS Code, or anything else. You just need to open a terminal, which every single computer has. So now it's asking for permission to create a file claude.md because this is a more of a risky operation than just reading files. You know, creating files can actually be dangerous at times. So I'm going to approve it. I'm going to hit enter and do yes. And there it is. It wrote 111 lines to claude.md to create this system prompt of a file. And all of that in less than a minute. If we want to see what this file actually looks like, we can open any text editor and just load it up. Boom. And here's the 111 lines that Claude Code wrote. The file provides a guidance to Claude Code when working with this code in its repository about Vectel. So yes, Vectel is an AI-powered task manager productivity app. Correct. Here's the tech stack, essential commands, architecture. Yeah. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be showing you all these guys, but hey, yeah, I'm not going to show you the last section on environment variables, but the rest you can see. So yeah, it analyzed the entire code base and created a very comprehensive 100-line summary of it that any AI agent can read and will instantly know what this code base is all about. Real quick, if you're enjoying this video, please consider subscribing. It's completely free and it will cause more videos about AI coding to be recommended to you. So if you want to be serious about AI in 2026, please take the 2 seconds, go below the video and click subscribe. Appreciate it. All right, the next thing Anthropic teaches us in this course is adding context with add and hashtag. So you can use add to mention specific files you want to add into the context window of Claude Code, such as add schema.prisma, which would include the schema, or add package.json, which would include the entire JSON file. But you can also use hashtag to create memories. And these are usually saved at the end of your claude.md file. So maybe you're doing something with the front end and Claude Code keeps using JavaScript, but you want to use TypeScript. So you would type in hashtag, remember to always use TypeScript. And this would get appended to the claude.md file at the very end so that all future instances of Claude Code working on this project actually remember this. Now here's a pro tip. Make sure to mention and reference any critical files about your code base or project inside of your claude.md so that every single Claude Code instance is aware of them, right? So maybe you have like your Supabase schema file where is the whole documentation of your Supabase, which again, that's not in the code base. So make sure to mention that file exists inside of the claude.md. So Claude Code knows, hey, this file has everything about the database. If you're making any database related changes, read that file first. So let me show you the context engineering in action. I can say read at Supabase setup. There we go. This is a Markdown file. And tell me one table we could remove. Answer in short. Boom. Now Claude Code uses a tool to read the entire file. As you can see, it's 716 lines. And at first, only 100 lines got pasted in. So it made sure to read the whole thing. And then it suggests the one table that we could remove. So anytime you're doing anything specific, make sure to tag the files relevant to that operation. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is the hashtag, right? So say, remember to answer in short. Boom. All right, slight correction. The hashtag convention doesn't seem to work anymore, but there's this /memory command, and you can either edit the project memory or the user memory. So I'm going to do the project memory, and it opens the file, and you can append it and add anything there. So yeah, if you want Claude Code to remember something, just add it to your claude.md file. That's a safe bet. Now, so far, what we did with Claude Code was pretty basic, but let me give you just a taste of what's coming later in the video, where I show you how to give Claude Code the power to use MCPs and how to create custom Claude Code hooks. So here, I literally set a plain English prompt to build me a full N8N automation for analyzing the user's calendar. and creating a separate Google Doc for every sales call that is booked there, matching the data from the leads in the user's Airtable. And I told it to build everything end to end. So as you can see, it used the N8 and MCP to do a bunch of tool calls, to learn about the structure of those nodes, and then it wrote a 329 JSON file, which includes the full N8N automation. So if we then go into N8N, we can go in top right, click the three dots, import from file, select this JSON, and you can see that, boom, the full N8N automation was built by Claude Code from a single prompt. Plain English, nothing crazy. This is the power of Claude Code when you give it the right MCP tools. So all that remains with this automation, because Claude Code has built it all, is to connect my credentials, so it runs with my actual accounts, and then to host it somewhere. Because what's the point of building an AI automation or an AI agent if it's not running 24/7, saving you time every single day? Now, the simplest way to host your N8N agents is with Hostinger. And this is what me and my team use to host all of our AI agents because of how simple and affordable Hostinger is. They literally created a one-click N8N deployment for their VPS. Now, they offer multiple different options, but personally, I recommend the KVM2 plan. This is what I use as well. So click on choose plan, which will take you to the Hostinger card. Now, as you can see, Hostinger currently has a very generous New Year sale. So if you've ever considered starting your own N8N automations or agents, now is the perfect time. So here, choose either 12 months or 24 months. That way you get the best deal possible. I mean, look how affordable it is. $7 a month for your own dedicated VPS. Insane. But as a bonus, if you use the coupon code David, you get additional 10% off. There you go, the coupon code has been applied, and you can see that it drops to just $6.29 a month for your own VPS that can host hundreds of AI agents like this one. So all that's left is to select the server location. Germany is fine. Operating system N8N is already selected, boom, and click continue. This will take you to the checkout, where all that remains is just filling out your billing info and your credit card. Once you complete the purchase, you'll be taken to the Hostinger panel, where you can manage your VPS, see all the statistics about it, and access the N8N portal, where all of your automations and agents are hosted. So again, Hostinger is amazing. They completely revolutionized how easy it is to deploy your N8N automations. And it's the most simple and affordable option on the market. So if you want to try it yourself, click the link below the video, use the code David, and get started with Hostinger today. Thank you, Hostinger, for sponsoring this video. All right, back to the Anthropic course. Next lesson they had is about making changes. So it's very useful to give Claude Code screenshots, and you can do it by Control-V on macOS, not Command-V. And this will paste the screenshot directly into the Claude Code CLI. This is super useful. It allows Claude to see exactly what you're looking at. That way, it can modify those specific UI elements and make changes like a great designer would, and not just guess how things look like based on only the code. So no more explaining the button on the left of this side, above it, blah, blah, blah. You just screenshot it and it will see what you see. Another thing that Anthropic teaches is the difference between the plan mode and the thinking mode. So the plan mode handles breadth. With Shift Tab, you can toggle between different modes. So for example, here we can do Shift Tab, and you can see that we're in the auto accept mode, the purple one, or I can do Shift Tab to go into the plan mode, or the default one, right? So when you switch to plan mode, Claude Code researches more files, puts more effort into reasoning, planning, and doesn't touch anything. It doesn't do any code changes, it just plans. Now, thinking mode is something else, and it could be complementary. This handles depth. There is 4 different strengths: think hard, think harder, and ultra think. So if you want Claude Code to use the maximum reasoning effort, you would add ultra think somewhere in your prompt. So let's say this is your prompt, right? Then you could add ultra think at the end. However, this does no longer do anything. So Anthropic's official course is outdated in this regard, right? This goes to show how fast the AI field is moving. In the past, you would see this like highlighted by rainbow, but not anymore. Now the thinking budget is always maxed by default. So no longer you have to do tricks like think or think harder, stuff like that, or adding ultra think at the end of your prompts. This doesn't work anymore because Claude Code now always ultra thinks by default. I mean, just to show you how crazy this is, before I recorded with my previous Claude Code version, this still worked. This was still a thing. But AI is moving so fast that as I updated the Claude Code version at the start of this video, the thinking mode no longer works and it's always set to ultra think. So make sure to use the latest Claude Code version because updates are happening nearly every day. The next section of the Anthropic course is about controlling the context. So when you press escape, it can stop Claude mid-response. That way you can interrupt it when it's going in the wrong direction, or when you want to provide more context and have it go again. Now when you press escape twice, you can see your previous messages and rewind at an earlier point of the conversation. So let me show you right here. I'm going to do escape. If I say like, write a detailed summary of what you did, I can press escape once to interrupt it. You can see it shows interrupted, but I can press escape twice to jump into the rewind mode where I can switch between the previous messages, go to any previous point of the conversation and go from there. So maybe if you worked on a new feature and it didn't go anywhere and you were like 10 prompts deep, you can go back to the prompt number 4 and resume from there. So a lot of people don't know that double escape opens this rewind menu and you can jump back to any previous point of the conversation. Super useful. Another context controlling, context engineering thing is the /compact command. So when you type in /compact into Claude Code, it summarizes the entire conversation while preserving as much of the learned knowledge as possible. And this is perfect for long sessions. So when you notice that there's a lot of unnecessary context and you want to free up the context window so that you're burning less of your rate limit and Claude Code responds faster and all the benefits of not having a full context window, all you need to do is just type in /compact. So notice the / command in Claude Code opens any of the commands. Some of them I have a custom, like explain pull request, but most of them here are pre-built by Anthropic, and the compact command is one of them. So you just do /compact, and it will compact the entire conversation to free up context so that you never hit the token limit of Claude's context window. Now, as I mentioned, you can create custom commands for Claude Code, and this can be done by creating markdown files in the .claude/commands folder. So let me show you how that actually looks like. I'm going to open a cursor and any file editor, doesn't matter. And inside of my folder structure, you can see I have the .claude folder and then commands, right? So let me show you how that looks like for a new directory. So I'm going to open an empty folder right here. Let's create a new folder project. Boom, open, close all these sidebars. They keep opening. All right, so you can see 0 files, nothing. But if we create a new folder, .claude/commands, and in here we can create a new file, say testing.md, and you say, this is just a test command, respond with an unfunny joke to the user, okay? So obviously this is a useless command, but I just want to show you how easy it is to create your own custom commands for Claude Code, because so many people are not doing it, and this is one of the best ways to improve your productivity, because if you find yourself repeating the same prompt over and over and over again, just turn it into a / command, and you never have to repeat yourself, and you just have it on your hand. Let me show you. So I'm gonna type in Claude to launch Claude Code. Yes, I want to allow it access to this folder. So here it is, and I can do /testing, and it runs my new testing command. Why did the programmer quit his job? Because he didn't get a raise. Anyways, you can see that it told an unfunny joke, and it works. And I literally created a new custom Claude Code command in like 10 seconds, while most of you have never created one, which means you're not on the cutting edge of AI. So lock in, start using custom Claude Code commands. So easy to create, but boost your productivity instantly. Oh, and one more thing related to custom commands. You can use $arguments to give a topic. So say, make it about this theme, and say $arguments. Then, well, let me restart Claude Code because you need to make sure it loads the new commands. Say testing, and then you put the argument, say the theme could be, I don't know, car racing, okay? So this is gonna be inserted into this variable arguments, this parameter. As you can see, it answers, even though this is in the middle of the prompt, right? So very useful when you're asking to, for example, review a specific PR or to create a spec for a specific feature, and you just need the variable to be somewhere in the prompt. When using the custom / command, just use the $arguments, and then whatever you put after the slash will be inserted in here as if it was replaced in a parameter. So as I promised, let's talk about MCP servers. Now this is a great way to extend the power of Claude Code and give it way more tools. So MCP servers, a lot of people don't understand them. Again, it might sound intimidating, but all they do is add new capabilities to Claude Code. They can run either locally or remotely, and they give Claude access to new tools. So for example, the Playwright MCP lets Claude control your browser. It can navigate, click, screenshot, test your UI, anything that the Playwright framework could do. Or a second example is the N810 MCP I showed you earlier, where it gives Claude Code the up-to-date documentation for all of the nodes inside of N810. Another thing that Anthropic teaches in this course is the GitHub integration. And you can do this with typing /install GitHub app. There we go. Claude Code also has a Slack app. But when you do this, it's going to check the repository. So use current repository, okay? So it's asking to use the current repository. So obviously this is for Vectel, my startup. Let's hit enter. I'm going to open GitHub, and it's going to ask for permissions. And this gives you two default actions. First, doing add Claude mentioning it inside of pull requests or issues to assign Claude Code different tasks or to have it review the pull request or to just answer a simple question. But once you do this GitHub integration, Claude can even push commits, open new PRs, and respond to review comments, all from the Claude Code CLI. So you don't have to switch to your browser or anything. You can just stay inside of Claude Code, talk to it in plain English, and it can do anything that a junior developer could do 24/7 for a fraction of the cost. Now here's where it gets interesting. The next section of the course talks about hooks and the SDK. So this is for the people who are actually logged in. Hooks let you run custom scripts before or after Claude uses a tool. So for example, a pre-tool hook would run before a tool call. And you can use it to prevent Claude Code from doing things you don't want it to do, such as reading sensitive files like env, or maybe you don't want it to change a specific file. You would create a hook that runs before every tool call that checks what Claude wanted to do. And if it is against that rule, it doesn't let it do it. Now, a post-tool hook works the same way, but it runs after the tool, right? So maybe it makes a sound, maybe it can check for type errors. Anything that makes sense after Claude Code would use a specific tool. You can have a hook, which could be a short Python script, to either notify you, to review those changes, or anything else that you want. Now, here's something that a lot of people don't understand about hooks in Claude Code, and that is absolute paths. And actually, Anthropic themselves recommend using absolute paths for the hook scripts. But of course, absolute paths are different on every machine, so you can't just commit your settings.json to share them, right? The absolute path to a certain file or to a certain directory depends on the file structure of your computer. So for example, here for my startup folder, if I do pwd, which is a terminal command, I can see the absolute path of where this folder is located on my computer. And this is what you want to use in your Claude Code hooks, the absolute path, not just, path within the parent or some path in relation to another file. You want to use the absolute path of where this directory is located on your machine. Now, luckily, there's a simple fix. You can use $pwd placeholders in the template file, and you can run a script that swaps those to the real path. So let's look at some useful hooks you should be using inside of Claude Code. First off, a TypeScript type checker hook, which simply runs tsc -no emit after every single file edit. And this will allow Claude Code to catch and fix any type errors automatically, whereas otherwise you might have only caught them when trying to deploy or when running npm run build. Another useful hook is duplicate code prevention. This can launch a second Claude Code instance to check if the new code already exists somewhere in the codebase, and if so, prevent duplication. And these are just two examples of automated hooks that would catch some common mistakes that Claude tends to do. But honestly, as AI models keep getting better, there's less and less of these mistakes. Okay, let's talk about the Claude Code SDK. Claude Code has a programmatic interface. So Claude Code has a programmatic interface, also known as the SDK, which includes the CLI as well as the TypeScript and Python libraries. Now, an important point to clarify is that Claude Code is not open source, okay? This only includes a few hand-selected bits and pieces of the codebase. So if you want to use a fully open source, fully private, and fully secured AI agent, make sure to use Agent Zero, which not only is completely open source, but it's also free, unlike Claude Code, and it can run locally on your machine. So I just made a full Agent Zero tutorial recently. I'm going to link it below the video. But let's talk about the Claude Code SDK. It allows developers to build custom AI agents that can do things on a computer in a similar way like Claude Code can. So basically, it gives you the same capabilities of Claude Code, but in your own specialized setup. So maybe if you're a lawyer, you would make it all about legal actions, analyzing legal contracts, researching previous lawsuits, whatever. Now, the official name for the Claude Code SDK is the Agent SDK, and here's what the documentation looks like. And again, if you're not a developer, you might be scared of documentation, but that's a huge mistake because, as you can see, it includes step-by-step instructions how to install the SDK and how to build on top of it. So don't avoid reading documentation. In fact, this is made for people who are not familiar with the project. So the more of a beginner you are, the more documentation you should be reading. And again, I'm going to leave a link to this SDK documentation below the video so you can check it out yourself if you want to build on top of Claude Code. Now, this is a fun part. The Anthropic course actually ends with a quiz. So we're going to do this and we're going to do it in YouTube comments. So obviously, if you want, you can cheat and you can go to the end, but what's the point of that? What we're going to do is we're going to go through the questions one at a time. There's only 8 questions. And what I need you to do is open a comment and start answering these. And again, this is for your own good so that you can actually solidify the learnings from this video. First question, what is the fundamental limitation of language models that necessitates the use of a tool system in coding assistance? Option A, option B, option C, and option D. Pause the video, read them, and type your answer below. Question number 2. What permission configuration is required when integrating MCP servers with Claude Code in GitHub Actions? Option A, option B, option C, and option D. Once again, add it to your comment, and let's go to the next question. Number 3. What is the primary difference between plan mode and thinking mode in Claude Code? And again, this one is a bit outdated, but still, it's good to know the knowledge. Option A, option B, option C, option D. Pause it, read it, and update your comment. Question number 4. Which of the following correctly describes the 3 types of Claude.md files and their usage? Option A, option B, option C, and option D. Moving on. Question number 5. How do you create a custom command in Claude Code that accepts runtime parameters? This one you should all get because I explained this really well. At least I think so. Option A, option B, option C, and option D. Comment below. Question number 6. Which type of hook can prevent a tool call from happening if certain conditions are met? Post tool hook, project hook, global hook, pre-tool use hook. This one is pretty free. Question number 7. A developer wants to prevent Claude from reading sensitive env files. Which type of hook should they set up? And what tool names would they likely match? Option A, B, C, and D. Last question, question 8. What is the primary purpose of hooks in Claude Code? A, B, C, or D? Update your comment, hit enter before I reveal the answers. You know what? Just to test my own knowledge, I'm gonna retake this quiz in real time to see if I'm locked in or not. So, what's the fundamental limitation? Yeah, so it's option D. They can only process text input, cannot interact with external system. Next question. What permissions is required? All right, I think it's this one. I'm not sure here. Primary difference between plan mode and thinking mode. All right, it's this one for sure. Which of the following correctly describes? All right, I think this one makes the most sense. Yes, for sure. Next question. How to create custom commands? Arguments, include arguments. Runtime parameters. Which type of hook? Pre-tool use hook. So we need to use a pre-tool use hook, but which one? Read. Okay, so read and grab for sure. Primary purpose of hooks in Claude Code. To run commands before or after Claude executes a tool. Submit. And I have passed 8 out of 8. You can see that my answers were correct, so hopefully yours were as well. And again, I'm gonna link the full official Anthropic course below the video, so you can go through it. This was a condensed version of it. I covered like 90% of it, but if you want to go through it again, feel free to do so. And hopefully you found this video valuable. If you did, please make sure to subscribe. It takes 2 seconds and it helps out a lot. With that being said, thank you guys for watching and I wish you a wonderful, productive week. See ya.